I guess last point I want to bring up is I covered that, and I also want to cover the fact that it is a disease, and we have to fight for that. Because lots of people choosing to use drugs will always be a choice, but having a disease is a disease. For example, if you begin to use heroin and stop using heroin, your withdrawal is not a choice. Alcohol dependency no longer a choice. So it's a disease because of this. It's got symptoms and it's treatable. That's why it's a disease and a discussion. If I eat too many donuts and I get diabetes, okay, I have diabetes. How did it happen? Yeah, I chose to eat the donuts, but my disease is independent of that. And people that are most likely to use drugs are the least likely to be able to handle them. There's one famous professor, he's a brilliant African American professor. He did heroin a couple of times to prove a point. He goes, I did heroin, never got hooked. Okay, 2 times. And people began to ask him, you know what's interesting about you? You got high self-esteem, high self-confidence, great education, solid support system, and no trauma history and no mental illness. Wow, big surprise how heroin didn't capture your heart. When dealing with people that are on heroin, especially women, 80% have an extensive sexual abuse history. 80%. So if you think about it, if you grow up and bad things happen to you, I've done some sex trafficking work. I do it really well, but I hate it. Why do I hate it? Because the stories are so bad and so graphic. I gotta go to the gym for 2 hours to get the stories out of my head. With that being said, the point is that when someone has an extreme abuse history, those bad things happen to them, right? They got severe PTSD. What is heroin? It's a painkiller. So all of a sudden I get a shot of heroin and all that emotional pain goes away. And now I feel not just normal, I feel safe, I feel settled, I'm back in the womb. And someone says, well, don't do it every day because you're going to get hooked. And I got untreated PTSD, I got no therapist, no support system. What am I going to do? More heroin to self-medicate my trauma and my pain. And especially even with the men, there's so much shame. Some of my male clients don't want to talk about their abuse histories because there's that stigma. Well, why didn't you stick up for yourself? Why didn't you fight back? And for some of my male clients, it's kind of interesting. There's like less sympathy. Even in the recovery community, if a woman comes out and says, I was abused, the recovery community will embrace her. NAA will embrace her. But I've seen this happen before with men that come out about their abuse. And it's really mean. They get stigmatized. Commentary goes on about them, making allegations about their sexuality. And it's really hurtful. And that's why a lot of the men that you're going to work with don't want to talk about their abuse history because they're afraid that they're going to make themselves so vulnerable and that no one's going to actually respect them after that. Is it making sense? So I want you guys to be aware of that. So obviously this ties into, PTSD being untreated, the history of trauma, and even the system itself can be more traumatic. I'm going to give you one last example. One of my clients was 17 years old, okay? He got caught smoking marijuana at Troy High School, which is not really a big deal. They gave him a charge for that. The police arrested him, took him out of the school. They recorded this on their cell phones, put it all over social media. Now he's embarrassed, right? So he gets put on probation. His mom is severely mentally ill. His dad's an alcoholic, but they got lots of money, living in a very nice house in Troy. He begins smoking marijuana on probation, goes in front of the judge. He's still 17 years old, being charged as an adult. Judge says, don't smoke marijuana on probation or I'll put you in jail. Comes back a month later, another dirty urinalysis test. So judge says, I'm going to put you in jail for 14 days. Okay, think about it logically. Suburban judge in Troy puts a 17-year-old kid, 120 pounds, in Oakland County jail. So he wasn't badly beaten, but they knocked him around. They took his desserts from him. They made fun of him. They slapped him, open hand slaps. He left Oakland County jail with severe PTSD. He was actively suicidal. The system did more damage to him than marijuana ever could have. And I spent a year trying to stop him from killing himself because they had the recording of him on the social media of him being held out of Troy High School in handcuffs, embarrassing him like that. No girls wanted to date him. All the families in the neighborhood shunned him, right? And he's got a dysfunctional family. And I got to meet with this kid, every couple of weeks to build him up. He doesn't want to go to school. He doesn't want to have friends. All he wants to do is smoke more marijuana and play video games. So I want to share it with you guys, and please have an open mind.